Hey, pen people, Brian here. Today we're gonna talk, wait, hey, you can stop now. Stop, hello. Just kidding. There's not actually anything wrong with the standing desk. I just thought that would be funny. But we're gonna talk about my standing desk today. It came from the company Flexispot. They reached out to me and I agreed to review their E6 standing desk. I'm excited to show it to you. So thank you Flexispot for sending this to me, and thank you for sponsoring this video. That's kind of a new thing for me. Just kind of a one-off thing, but thank you. So I'll show you what this desk is all about, talk about any potential pros and cons, and I'm going to talk about whether or not this desk is worth the $600 price tag. Before we begin, I have to say I know a lot more about fountain pens than I do about standing desks. So I'm gonna do my best, but just know that I am a newbie here. If you are into standing desks, if you have tried other ones, let me know what you think of what I'm about to show you. Let me know how it compares to what you have. I'm just curious to know how this desk stacks up against others. Okay, let's start with the packaging. So my desk arrived via FedEx, and it's funny, they didn't bring it to the door, they just dropped it off in front of my garage, in front of the driveway. It's funny though, because they usually do bring things to the door, and I think the reason they didn't is because this is just so heavy. This thing weighs ballpark about 100 pounds. And it actually came in two separate packages. The desktop came in one package, and all of the hardware, the legs, feet, all that came in a different package. It was very well packaged, good padding. Everything was very compact and well thought out. I was actually really impressed with how they figured out how to ship this giant standing desk in a way that made sense. But because these boxes, both of them weigh 50, 60 pounds, you're probably gonna want some help getting them inside and to the room where you want them. Also, Flexispot recommends having a buddy to help you set this desk up. I think that's really good advice. I did not have I did have a buddy. It was my 4-year-old. She was very curious about what I was doing, but she's not exactly a heavy lifter. So I was kind of on my own as far as assembling the desk. My wife would have loved to help, but she was working and I didn't want to bug her. So I did it by myself, but these components are very heavy and it would be very advisable to have a friend or family member there to help you out. You will especially want some help when you've got all of the hardware installed on the desk, because it will be upside down. You are definitely gonna want help flipping that right side up. I did not do that. I did it by myself and it was scary. Fortunately, everything turned out okay, but if I could do it over again, I would have bugged my wife and said, hey, can you help me flip this desk over? So a couple other quick tips about assembly that I think you might find helpful are: one, if you have a drill with a screwdriver attachment, that would be very handy. Some of the screws that attach the desk surface to the hardware underneath do have pilot holes to go into, so they are doable with a screwdriver. Others you kind of have to do on your own, and it's pretty difficult if you don't have an electric screwdriver of some kind. So if you don't have one, see who does, see if you can borrow one, and that'll make your life a lot easier. On that note, I was pretty scared to like bore these screws into this solid wood desk, but it turned out fine. Like I should not have been worried. It's tough, it can take it. Another thing I recommend is paying very, very close attention to the instructions. I struggled a little bit to follow them, and I'm usually pretty good with instructions and with assembling things and figuring things out. So it was a little bit complex for me, and it could have just been that I was also trying to entertain a 4-year-old. That takes a lot of bandwidth, so it could have been that. But my little control panel ended up on the left side of my desk instead of the right. And some of the cabling underneath didn't quite reach, so I had to unscrew things and move things around and then reconnect them. Could have been me, but just make sure you're paying very close attention. And I do recommend, so the instructions say to lay out all of the hardware and screw it into place and then plug everything in. I recommend plugging everything in before you screw it in, just to make sure that it all connects before you've place things permanently on the desk. Though, just so I don't get in trouble here, please make sure that you're not plugged into the wall while you're screwing things into place. That seems like a good safety measure to keep in mind. So yeah, the assembly process was a little bit quirky. Could have been the instructions, could have been me, could have been both. I'm not really sure. But after I had it all assembled and flipped upright and everything, that's really where my problems stopped. I have really liked using this standing desk. So let's run through the features, size, all that kind of stuff. And then of course, we'll talk about whether it's worth it. Is this a good investment? Is this a good standing desk for your money? Let's talk about the desk surface first. I think that if you were to compare a fountain pen to a desk, the desk top, the surface, would be kind of the equivalent of a fountain pen nib. Like, you can have a really fancy looking pen, but if the nib isn't good, what's the point? Same with the desk. If the surface isn't good, what's the point? And the surface on this desk is really, really interesting, and I like it quite a bit. It is made out of solid bamboo, which according to Flexispot has a tensile strength of 28,000 pounds per square inch. I don't quite know what that means, but it sounds impressive. In any event, bamboo is a very strong, durable material. It has the potential to be very sustainable because it grows very quickly. And according to Flexispot, the bamboo is actually FSC certified. So that's really cool. Whenever there's wood or paper or whatever, I like to see that there's some kind of sustainability going on. That just makes me feel better about the things I'm using. But anyway, bamboo is just really strong too. It's just a really good material. And the texture of this desk is really interesting. I kind of expected a heavily lacquered, glossy kind of finish, but it's not. It has a it's smooth, but it almost feels porous, but it's not. I've spilled things on it a little bit and haven't had any problems wiping them up. Haven't had any staining or anything from the oils in my skin or anything like that. The way that this bamboo has been treated is really good, but it feels very natural at the same time. Like, there's almost kind of a raw feel to the desk surface, which I like. It's smooth, it's flat, it's well planed, but it doesn't feel overly finished or plasticky or resiny in some way. It just feels like wood, which is cool. And the measurements on the desk surface for this size, I'm gonna look at my notes here so I don't mess it up. I think it's technically a 30 by 60 inch desk. For me, it measured out to 29.5 inches by 59.5 inches. And I think that's so that when people see the measurement online and you get the desk, it's slightly smaller so that it will fit very well into that size space. That way you don't accidentally get a desk that's too big for your space or whatever. So I think that that's fine that it's half an inch smaller. And then the centimeters on that, 75 by 151 roughly. Okay, the second most important thing on this desk, especially since it's a standing desk, are the motors. And how effective is it actually at going up and down? That's kind of the point of a standing desk, right? I'm currently sitting at it, but I've used it a lot, standing and sitting. Flexispot calls these whisper quiet. Again, I don't have anything to compare them to as far as the noise goes. They say the noise from these motors is less than 45 decibels. I, again, don't really know how to place that in terms of loudness, but just so you can hear it for yourself here. It's definitely noticeable, but it's a gentle sound. There's nothing clicking or clanging or anything. It's a very even sound. So I don't have any problems with it. And I think that if I were in an office with a lot of people with this desk, I don't think I'd have any problems with it there either. I don't think anyone would be annoyed by that noise. It's pretty gentle. Now, apparently this desk can lift up to 352 pounds. That's a lot. I'm terrified to test that, but should we test it? Let's test it. Okay. Oh, I'm scared. I weigh about 200 pounds, just FYI. We're not testing the 352. We're just gonna go do 200. Okay. So far, so good. Don't try this at home. I'm a professional. Okay, here we go. Oh my gosh. Okay, so it got me there. Holy cow, that was nerve-wracking. Still kind of nerve-wracking. Again, please don't sue me if you do this at home and break your neck. Just don't do this. Just watch me do it and be satisfied with that. It got me up here. It did. It was a little slow. I could tell that the motors were working harder, but it did get me up here. So let's get me down. It's not having as much of a problem there. It sounds like it's much more normal. Okay, that's good. Wow. Well, that was fun. All right, let's talk about the controls, how you actually navigate moving this thing up and down. So there are a bunch of buttons on this thing, 7. So there's an up and down button. There is a standing position, sitting position, a 3, 4, and an M. guess M is for manual or something. I don't know. This is how you program it, this M button. I had to look at the manual to know how to program it. It wasn't hard to figure out once I looked at that. But anyway, so up and down, pretty self-explanatory. The standing and sitting modes, you get to program yourself. So you get to decide, okay, I like it here sitting and I like it here standing. That way, instead of having to sit here with the up and down buttons until it reaches the height you want, you just click one button one time and it does what you want, which is kind of cool. And then the 3 and 4, it's just extra programming stuff if you have other heights you also want to have saved. I don't really know why you would exactly, although I did think that would be very handy if you were sharing this desk with somebody else. Like if my wife wanted to use this desk, she could also program her sitting and her standing height into this thing, which is kind of cool. So a couple other things about this is you kind of click once to activate it, turn it on, and then you click it again to make it do whatever you want it to do. It's backlit, it looks really cool. The lights kind of like fade on, fade off or whatever, which is kind of fancy feeling. It's kind of cool. And then there's a readout of the, I assume that's inches of the height of the desk. Another thing that's really cool about this desk is it has an anti-collision feature, which is just a fancy way of saying that it can sense when it bumps into things. And so if it's raising or lowering and it bumps something, it will stop. It will not continue, which is pretty cool. So kind of helps you avoid accidents, I guess. The first time I actually tried raising my standing desk, it wouldn't go. And I was like, oh no, is something wrong with this desk? But it was just that one corner of the desk was rubbing against the wall and the desk was sensitive enough to know I'm not supposed to go up. I'm not clear. So I pulled it out from the wall a little bit and it went up just fine. So kind of cool. Let me show you how that works. So if I start going up and I tap the desk, it'll go back down a little bit and then stop. I'm still pushing the up button. If I go down and I bump the bottom, it goes up a little bit and then stops. Still pushing the button. So pretty cool feature. I think that's pretty amazing. Okay, 2 other quick things that make this desk kind of nice and convenient. One, when you get the desk, the feet of it come with these like circular feet at the corners to just kind of make it stable on the ground. But it also has some caster wheels. You can remove those little base plate things and put the wheels on, and I opted to do that, and it's been very handy to be able to move my desk around mostly for YouTube. I can move it around, change the backdrop really easily, put me up against a wall or whatever. So that's been really nice. I really like having those wheels on there. So I think it's cool that it just comes with them as an option. The other thing is I have watched some videos about some standing desks out there, and I can't remember what desk it was, but I heard one reviewer complain about their desk not coming with cable management options. You know, there were just cables hanging everywhere and it was just ugly and inconvenient and cumbersome. That is not a problem with this desk at all. So there is cable management everywhere. So there's this foam thing back here that you can stick charging cords in. It came with this big roll of like Velcro-y stuff that you can cut up and use in different places. It came with little almost like zip tie looking things. So there's cable management for your cables, for your lamp, for your computer, for whatever. But there's also cable management for all of the cables underneath this thing. And there's a lot. So there's a lot of nice stuff to keep it up, keep it hidden, keep it out of your way. I haven't even used everything they gave me. I have a lot of it still laying around, which is kind of nice because I don't know, maybe I'll need it later. Okay, last but not least, is this desk worth $600? That's a lot to pay for anything, right? Though, like I said, this is new to me. I don't know how much people spend on desks. Typically, the most I've ever spent is like $50. You know, like I'm a cheapskate for most things. But there are a few reasons why I do think that this desk is probably worth what you're paying for it. The first is this desk surface. I think that it's just really nice. And I think anytime you're dealing with nice wood, that immediately drives up the price. Also, the legs and feet on this thing are rock solid. They are so heavy and beefy, you know, it's just like solid steel. So anytime you have big chunky solid wood, big chunky solid steel, that's automatically gonna be kind of pricey. Materials just cost money, go figure. Another thing that can drive up the price is the size. This isn't the biggest standing desk in this E6 line. I think there's different sizes, but it is big. This is a big desk. So if you go smaller, it's automatically cheaper. For me, the only thing that didn't quite feel like it was maybe matching the quality of everything else was the plastic housing around the electric components that are fastened under the desk. That plastic housing feels a little cheap to me, but what do I know? I don't. I don't know what to expect. So yeah, but I did notice like, that like the desk surface, the metal components, everything feels really awesome. These other components, maybe not quite as awesome, but I haven't had any problems with the desk. It's been working like a charm. So I don't think I have anything really to complain about. It's done its job very well. I've enjoyed using it. And again, if you're more of an expert than I am in standing desks, let me know what you think of this. How does it stack up compared to what you have? But ultimately, this is a good desk. I've enjoyed using it. I love it. I think it's good. So if $600 is your budget for a desk, then I say go for it.